It is 9:30 on a Tuesday morning, and that can only mean one thing. It is time for Harper Talks here on FM 88.3 WHCM Harper College Radio. Brian Shelton here with you, and my special guest today is Dr. Marian Coons, who is the Vice President of Workforce and Strategic Alliances at Harper College. That sounds like a lot.
It's a lot, but it's a lot of fun, too.
Is it a lot of fun? Okay.
It is.
So we were just talking before we got started here, and you have been at the college for 30 years now. That is a long time to be in one place these days. Tell us about that process.
Yeah, it's a very long time. I actually started at Harper as an adjunct. I was working at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, and part of what they like to do is to encourage people to give back to the community and to use some of our skills. And I was good in the classroom, so I came to Harper and I taught a finance or a banking 101 class, continued as an adjunct for a while, and then became a full-time faculty member. From there, I've evolved into an administrator role, and I've loved every minute of what I've done here.
Is that true?
It's very true.
Okay. Well, we're glad that you're here with us today and that you're able to share those experiences with us. So I said your official job title right at the start there. Can you tell us what that means to be the Vice President of Workforce and Strategic Alliances?
Yeah, and that's only one of the things I do. I do two other things. So in that particular role, the workforce area at the college works with area businesses to identify skills needs. So what are the shortages? What types of employees or talent are they looking for that they can't find? And then I bring that information back here, and we look for programs that are either in development or have been developed, and we try to find connections for those employers. One example is probably about 6 months after Dr. Under arrived on campus, I was meeting with a group of manufacturers, and they were telling me that they had no skilled workers in the pipeline. So manufacturing has changed a lot.
Right.
It's gone from a sort of dirty, dead-end, dark career area to very high-tech. So I mentioned it to him, and he said, bring him in. We had mothballed our manufacturing program at that point, many years before. So what grabbed Dr. Under's attention was that he said, bring him in, and his conference table holds about 6 people. Well, there are about 25 people standing behind me. So we ended up going into a classroom, and from there we formed a task force, and within 6 months we resurrected our manufacturing program. And part of that has resulted in an extension to our lab in the new building H. So that's the workforce area. The strategic alliances, we look for other types of partners within the community or even nationally that we can work with. Sometimes it's good money for us if we can procure a grant from them.
Sure.
And we try to elevate the stature of the college. So one initiative was what we call the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, which was a White House initiative that was fascinating to go to Washington about every other week and work on a committee there. So that's part of what I do. In addition, I have strategic planning and institutional research. So we primarily look at the long-term goals of the college and try to move the college in the right direction. And then we use researcher data behind that. And then constantly looking at our outcomes to see if we're achieving what we set out to achieve. So that's one of my roles,
right,
all wrapped up into a little package. Second, I assumed the role of Chief of Staff last July. And in that role, I do a lot of different things internally to connect projects at the college. So working directly with Dr. Under, I put the agendas together for the various executive council meetings, cabinet meetings, and I just help facilitate things within the college that need to get done. And then the last thing I do is I'm the board liaison.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that I've been doing for a while. So I work with the various leaders within the college, put the board packet together. Right now, we have an election going on.
Right. I was going to ask you about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I serve as the election official for the college during that time as well. So it's a very interesting job, so you can see I'm never bored.
Right, absolutely. Let's talk about the election just for a second. Obviously, not talking about particular candidates or anything, but how does that process at the college work? I imagine, you have a board with members who generally serve 6-year terms, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have new people coming on to an existing board with people who have been there for a while. How does that change the dynamic of the working relationship, and how do you ensure continuity of governance there?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We have our board members do have 6-year terms, so there are 7 of them. And the way the Community College Act was written is it was very creative because they don't roll off at the same time. So there's always continuity. So either 2 or 3 seats are up for election every 2 years. So we currently have 3 seats up. One is a 2-year term, so one of the board members had retired, and that person is appointed, and then the next election cycle that goes up for election. So we have one person running for that seat, and then we have 2 2-year seats up, and we have 3 individuals. The continuity, because of the sort of senior trustees that have been there for a while, it helps keep the college very consistent in terms of the governance system that we have put into place. And our board has been very effective, and they understand their role is to ask questions, oversee, and then they work through the president for the operations of the college. And that's really the soundest and the most traditional governance model. So because we have these experienced trustees, several of them have been on the board for at least 15 years, and they really understand the culture. But for the new trustees, we do a really intensive onboarding process. So there's some requirements. They have to go through an Open Meetings Act training. They have to do some other things, but then they have to understand sort of even the structure of the college and the flow of the board meetings and the importance of the decisions that they make at those board meetings.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if any of our listening audience has been paying attention to what goes on at some school boards and community college boards across the state of Illinois. There's been several controversial school board elections and issues going on, and that kind of thing doesn't seem to happen at Harper. At least not in my time here. And do you think the onboarding process and really getting to know the college plays a role in that, in keeping things moving steady and straight and making sure that all things are groovy and good? Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, okay.
I do, and I think that the board works very hard at it. They do a lot of professional development. They review their policies. For example, they speak through the chair, so that way you don't have bickering between board members. And they're very disciplined, and it takes that to ensure that the college, is governing properly, and it's worked for us. And the college is well managed, so we haven't attracted that type of attention to ourselves, and sometimes that exacerbates a problem with the board when there are issues.
Yeah, I've seen community college board meetings with, screaming fights and throwing things.
Yeah,
so,
we're lucky. We're very, very lucky.
We are very lucky.
And it makes my job a lot easier, so I really appreciate it.
I would imagine it does, yeah. I wanted to go back to something you talked about at the very beginning. You were talking about the manufacturing program and talking about how that was sort of kind of mothballed and then, reinvigorating that. I think that a lot of people in America have this vision that manufacturing is dead. We hear that a lot. Manufacturing is dead. When the reality is manufacturing is far from dead. It's just that manufacturing has changed. You need some type of post-secondary education these days, whether it be a certificate or a couple of classes or an associate's degree or an associate of applied science. Can you talk about that process a little bit and how that's working to train and retrain people for the future manufacturing jobs? Because these are good jobs. These are jobs that pay good money, and you don't come home covered in crap. Right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly. So the jobs of old. So if you go back, maybe 40 years, 50 years, someone could graduate with a high school diploma, go into a manufacturing environment. We call them a factory back then. Through wage increases, they could support a middle class living with a family and a house and cars in the garage, and you speed forward. And a lot of the low-skilled jobs, those have moved abroad. So you look at some of the countries that pay very low wages, and those are the types of jobs that will probably never come back to the United States. So the high-tech jobs, if you look at the automation, even in an auto plant right now, and how those automobiles that used to be on an assembly line with individuals, that's all done through robotics and through different types of automation. Even most of the products that you see even in the studio, they're using what's called a computer numeric control system, or a CNC machine, because they're much more precise. So we've gone high tech. So on the downside, it uses less labor. On the upside, that labor has to be skilled. And one way to get those skills is to come to a community college. And then our manufacturing program also articulates to four-year schools. So someone can get an applied engineering degree if they want to go into management or some other field within manufacturing. So it certainly has changed. If you walk into some of the area manufacturers, the floors are clean, they're well lit, and they have to be. The dust and other types of things in the manufacturing of old really adversely impacts that equipment, so they have to keep the environment very clean.
Okay. You're listening to Harper Talks on FM 88.3 WHCM, Harper College Radio. I'm Brian Shelton, and today my guest is Dr. Marian Coons, who is the Vice President of Workforce and Strategic Alliances at Harper College, and we were talking about manufacturing. I was curious, can you rattle off a couple of the manufacturing programs we have here and what they, not to put you on the spot there, I know you're an encyclopedia, but.
That's okay. We have our CNC machining program. We have our welding program, which is really interesting because they are using robotic welders now to help teach the students. We have a fabrication lab, which is new. We had a donation from the FMA, which is an organization that supports metal fabricators. So we've added on to that lab there. We also have mechatronics, which is it's the automation part of manufacturing. So it's hydraulics, electricity, and a lot of other things I don't even understand that all work together to help run an assembly line, for example, or highly automated equipment like robotics. So those are some of the programs within the manufacturing program.
Okay, that's great. Mm-hmm. So you've been here for 30 years now. What are some of your fondest memories of being here at Harper College? What stands out the most to you?
Some of the fondest memories are some of the celebratory things that we've had here. We have one coming up with our 50th anniversary, but particularly when we have a new program that's starting or a new building that's opening up. I've seen a lot of changes that have come through. A lot of it's based on leadership at the time, but I think that the thing I'm proudest about is when we did one of our first community surveys, we learned a lot from it about how to reposition the college, and the stature of our academic programs and the reputation of our faculty is stellar. And you could see it by the number of high-level scholarships our students receive. They get great recommendations from their faculty. So that's been a highlight, is watching the faculty grow and the new programs come into the college. Secondly is the transformation of the campus. And it was, if you look at the health sciences area in Avante, they used to be in D building, the old D building.
The old D building.
The old D building. And our chemistry department was there in biology. And it was, you talk about dark and dreary. And then we heard from our community, these jobs are growing and we need to be higher tech. So we went out for a referendum in our community, and they said yes, and we ended up building Avante, and it sort of transformed the landscape of the college. And then to that, the Performing Arts Center, which has been a great jewel in the community, and the Wojak Conference Center. So I've seen the physical transformation of the campus, as well as sort of the academic reputation that really has been elevated here at Harper, and I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, we are all. I've been here for 3 years now. We are always building. That is what we do. So in my time here, I saw H finished up. I saw D get destroyed and put back together again. Now I'm watching F, the library building. It was destroyed, and now they're rebuilding it. And I know there's a big project coming up with building M. We talked to Dr. Ender about that a couple of weeks ago on the show, but is there anything about that building that you're particularly excited about? I'm
very excited. It's a very unique combination of partners that have come together to make that happen, because the funding that we needed to repurpose that building was not available. So the only way to do that is to bring in partners. Actually, the groundbreaking is on Monday for that building. So we are bringing together Northwest Community Healthcare that's going to be providing the healthcare services and some psychological services. We also have the Palatine Park District coming in, and they helped fund the pool, and they did not have an internal pool, an inside pool within Palatine. So that's going to be a win-win situation. They have a new facility that they can use for their community, and our pool was failing terribly. And what was interesting about that building, it was on a list for a possible state funding, to help repurpose that building that way, and we just know the way things are going in the state. So we just took the bull by the horns, and we brought the partners together, and with the money that we had available, and it's going to be an outstanding building and an outstanding resource for the community. Yeah, it all sounds really exciting. Dr. Ender went into a lot of great detail about that building, and what a true community partnership with a community college. So we are going to take a quick break and let everybody take a breath, and we'll be right back in about 2 minutes with Harper Talks and Marian Coons here on FM 88.3 WHCM Harper College Radio.
That's the Surefire Soul Ensemble from Coal Mine Records with Layin' Low on FM 88.3 WHCM, Harper College Radio. I'm Brian Shelton, and you are listening to Harper Talks. We're talking with Dr. Marian Coons, who is the Vice President of Workforce and Strategic Alliances at Harper College. She's also the Chief of Staff and like the queen of all kinds of other stuff as well. So great to have you with us today. We appreciate you coming in. I know it's a busy week and you got lots of stuff going on. We talked about manufacturing. We talked about the board election that's going on. I was really, I don't know if you want to get into the details of this too much, but I was at a board meeting about a month ago, and Building F, the library building, is being named after current and former board members. Can you talk to us about that a little bit, how that came to be and what the financial situation is there? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
There's a very public, transparent policy that the board has. And the board works through the foundation. So the Harper Educational Foundation is a 50c3, so they're a nonprofit, and their main role is to collect funds for scholarships. And once someone has given to the level of $1 million,
okay,
it's a lot of money.
Yes,
we name a building after them. So this is actually the third building, and that's another exciting thing since I've been here to see this sort of unfold. So the first were the Cannings, who we will name Building A. It's the Canning Center as it is now, and it hopefully will be renovated.
One of these days.
One of these days. And then the Foglia Center, which is in the Allied Health area over in Avante, and now the third building, which will be for Diane Hill. And it's an interesting family history. Her husband was a very well-known builder in the area, and he ran a company called Kimball Hill Homes, and some people may live in one of his homes or townhomes. And they've been, David was actually on the board first, and he was an active board member, asked very good questions, and unfortunately he passed away. And when the board met, when that happens, when there's a retirement and someone vacates a seat, they get to appoint, and they appointed Diane, his widow, to sit in his seat. And they have been very active in our Access and Disability Center. We have the Hill Foundation has a speech. They're known for their speech and their hearings, the support of people who are have hearing problems, and they've given money that way. Scholarships, every different type of activity that we have, a gala they're supporting. So they've amassed this $1 million, well over that, and so we'll be naming the building, the library, after them. What
a great thing! Not only to serve on a board, but to make that kind of financial contribution and commitment to a college like this. It's a fantastic commitment, and it should really be applauded. I was having a conversation with someone the other day about land stewardship. There's a piece of property off of Penny Road near the college here that someone gave away, 80 acres of land to be used as environmental education land. When you think about how expensive that land is in South Barrington, right? I mean, that's probably $20-30 million of the land that they've put in as a nonprofit status, and it's so great when people do that. And I think our board members and other community members who are committing to the college like that really should be applauded. And I don't think get enough attention, really, for
I agree with you.
For what they do.
And it's not very common for community colleges, so we're extremely lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking through your many activities that you're involved in, I know that you are a tenured faculty member here at the college, but you're a full-time administrator. You still teach, though. You're still involved in the classroom. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, I love to teach, and it's one of the things that I try not to give up because there's many other things going on. So whenever possible, I am teaching online. So I came to Harper in the business area. I was teaching marketing, finance, et cetera, as I had mentioned. So whenever I have the opportunity and the Business and Social Science division has something available for me, I will teach. So I'm currently teaching an online second 8-week course. It's a Principles of Professional Selling. And I enjoy it. I try to change it up to make it interesting. And online teaching can be a challenge because you need to engage your students. So I taught a full complement of marketing and business classes management when I was a full-time faculty member. And retaining tenure is unusual when you move into administration. And Harper is very good about that. So it allows me the opportunity, if I ever want to go back to teach full-time, I can.
Okay. So you're teaching online. When was the last time you taught in the classroom?
Probably about 7 years ago.
Okay.
And interesting, when I was a faculty member, I primarily taught in the evening. A lot of my, especially when I was an adjunct, my students came in and I saw them, particularly the adults, taking one class at a time, trying to get through. If they took more than one, it was difficult. So that was sort of the impetus behind the Fast Track program.
Right.
And so the last time I taught was in the Fast Track program, which is really a passion of mine.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about Fast Track. I taught in Fast Track once. It was a blast. I had a very small class. It was a group of people who were all from Zurich Insurance, I think it was, and they were just the most fascinating group of people who were working to get their degree and just going through these courses. Can you talk to us about that program just a little bit?
Sure. It's the Fast Track program, like I mentioned, it's designed for the adult that brings experience into the classroom. And what we saw is that we did some research, and the adult students were a little frustrated because there is some repetition in classes. So you will learn about, for example, the 4 Ps of marketing. In Management 111, you'll learn about it in Marketing 140 and Marketing 245. So we are able to streamline that. So we set the sequence of classes up for the students. They don't have to pick their classes. So once they join a cohort, which is a consistent group of students, their class schedule is laid out for them. And every 6 weeks, so they only take one class at a time, but every 6 weeks they're taking a different class. Math and accounting we've expanded to 8 weeks because it just takes a little longer.
Sure.
So they can see the end in mind. So they are technically part-time students, but they will finish in a little over 2 years.
Wow. What a great opportunity. There's also that really cool opportunity with Zurich and a couple others for this apprenticeship program.
Right.
And we talked with Dr. Ender and with Maria Lapidus about that as well. What a really cool program. It's so great to see community colleges putting this kind of thing together. And, you know, the traditional college student is very important to our market here. I mean, we want those, you know, right out of high school students, but those adult learners who are coming back to school and getting an education and advancing their career and being able to stay in our community, that's a very important part of our mission as well. So,
agreed.
yeah.
And you know, it's interesting with the apprenticeship programs, when I meet with the area employers, it's frustrating because they want the students with the education, but that they want them with experience. And how do you build that other
Right.
than through an apprenticeship, because they can do both at the same time. And it lets the company try on the student, it lets the student try on the company to see if it's a good fit. And the best part of the apprenticeship, which Fast Track does not have, is the employers are paying all the tuition. So the students graduate debt-free. All their books are paid for. The entire bill from the college is paid for by their employer.
What a fantastic opportunity. I wish somebody paid for me to go to school.
Me
That'd
too.
be great. Yeah, I'm sure my dad wishes someone would pay for me to go to school too. So let's real quick here. You are, I find this interesting because I am a self-professed train dork. So you were on the Metra Citizens Advisory Board. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting group. So Metra has really 2 main boards. Their governing board or board of directors, they are setting policy, but before they do that, they like to confer with the Citizens Advisory Board. So, for example, we have a gentleman on the board who's blind, and he brings those issues to the board in terms
Right.
of making it more accessible and how he can navigate the train system. So when there's going to be a fare increase, or they're looking to buy different types of what they call rolling stock, which are the train cars, they will bring it to the Citizens Advisory Group so we can offer suggestions or input as to how the public may view the changes that they're thinking of making. So I've been doing it for about 2.5 years. I've learned a lot. There are people that have been on that board for many, many, many years. And just the infrastructure, what it takes to run a railroad system like Metra is unbelievable. And the state funding for them has been very, very difficult as well. But they're making it work, and they try to, you know, mitigate the fare increases like we do with tuition, but they still have to run the trains.
Yeah.
So it's been fascinating.
How'd you wind up on that anyway?
Good question. It's based on the sector or the region that Metra runs. So the mayor of Hanover Park, Rodney Craig, is also a director, and because he is a director, he gets to appoint someone to the Citizens Advisory Group. So he came to Harper and said, I really would like to put someone from Harper on there, and so I was placed on that board.
Oh, okay. Great. Great. Fantastic. Yeah, that's it. I love trains. we grew up with them. My grandfather had this enormous model train set up in the basement of his house, so it's been kind of one of those things we've always done. One of my favorite new things with Metra, though, is the app. I'm sure you use the app. That's fantastic.
Metra app.
That has really just changed train travel for me because, so many times you get on the train, you're like, where am I going and where am I getting off and when's my next train coming? And now it's all right there for you on the app, and it makes it so much easier to get in and out of the city, which is one of the reasons why our family moved down to this area, so we can get quickly into the city and back. So that's been a lot of fun. I do want you to talk briefly about the state budget and how that is affecting Harper College. Now, we've had several people on talking about that and how we are funding MAP grants and how we are trying to maintain a balanced budget. I know we just had a financial report that came out in the Harper News last week that said that revenues are down, but expenses are down as well, and so that we're doing a really good job self-managing that. How make our listeners feel better about Harper College and how we're spending our money and how we're managing this budget crisis.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons we're in the situation that we're in is because we're very conservative. So the revenue line is affected by enrollment, and our enrollment's been about flat. We're doing a lot with dual credit, but that doesn't produce any revenue for the college. So that's college courses being given to high school students.
Sure.
So the revenues have been stressed, and one of the biggest lines is from the state, which is about $7.6 million. So what we've done on the flip side on the expenses is through our managers, our faculty, our administrators, people are really thinking before they're spending, which is really critical. So, for example, in our materials and supply lines, Ron Alley, our chief financial officer, was telling us that we're under budget there. So savings there, we are critically looking at every position that comes open and trying to combine things if possible. So I think everybody in the college is just very aware of what's happening. And I'll just give you an example. I've been here a long time, and at the end of a fiscal year, if you had a little money left over in your supply line, you go, oh, let's load up on some staplers and markers, and people just aren't doing that. And I think that that says a lot about the college and how seriously we're taking the situation, because there's still some unknowns there. If there's a property tax freeze, it's about half of our budget that comes in through property taxes.
Right.
And if they freeze that, that's going to affect us. And if the state decides to somehow put pension obligations back onto the community colleges, that's going to also create some funding issues for us. So we're very well situated. We just had a Moody's report. I don't know if that a AAA bond rating was renewed, because we did a small bond issue a few months ago. So everything's pointing in the right direction. We heard yesterday at a meeting that some community colleges downstate may not be able to make payroll for the month of April.
Wow.
So that puts it in perspective, and we have a little money in the bank. We don't. Harper does not believe in huge fund balances, because that means we may be overcharging in tuition. So we have just a stable fund balance that we can call on if we needed it. So we're extremely lucky, but it's been planful. We've set it up this way.
Okay. We've got a referendum coming up in the fall, right? No, am I wrong about that?
No,
okay.
no referendum.
Okay, I thought we had one coming up.
No.
Uh-oh. We're being taken over by the emergency alert system. All right. Well, that was interesting. So there's a tornado drill on campus right now, so I guess we should duck and cover.
Oh, that's right. It was supposed to happen this week. They did it during your broadcast,
during
Brian.
my broadcast. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been very insightful having you here and learning about these topics, and definitely bring you back in again and talk about more things that are going on at the college. So have a great day. Thanks
Thank you.
coming.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. You've been listening to Harper Talks on FM 88.3 WHCM, Harper College Radio. We got some fun stuff coming up here, including the Monkees with The Last Train of Clarksville, but that'll be in just a minute.
88.3 WHCM, Harper College Radio, Palatine, Illinois, a broadcast service of Harper College and its Board of Trustees.